Never fails. Rounded off lug nut and a broken stud. And you know, our Impala's not even in the shop for that. Actually, it's humming as I'm going down the road, swerve to the right or to the left. We can tell we have a wheel bearing problem. That's what it's here for. But today on Tech Garage, we're going to address that. But even more important, we're going to have to fix these lug nuts and studs. Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, Dave, it never fails. A simple job turned into a nightmare, my friend.
I cannot think of how many times, John, I've been in the driveway, want to get to something behind the wheel, and you end up stripping a lug nut or breaking a stud, and you're dead in the water.
Yeah, you can't even go to the store, or you can't go anywhere. You're stuck.
Yeah, invariably, it's the only vehicle I have, so I've got to get a ride, and a simple project turns into an all-day ordeal.
Exactly, and we got ours off. We'll show you the secret a little bit later, how we got it off, but we got it off because we think we have a wheel bearing problem, and you know, we're going to have to diagnose that as well, Dave. There's a couple of options going on here, but it's most likely the wheel bearing.
Yeah, it could be suspension, it could be the wheel bearing, it could be a tire. We've done a visual inspection of the suspension. Everything looks like it's intact. We've wiggled stuff. It all seems to be working fine, so it's probably down to the tire or the wheel bearing.
Yeah.
So we'll got the tire off, and we'll take a look at the wheel bearing first.
Yeah, and you know, to get to that wheel bearing, though, we had a few steps. Walk us through the steps to get down to the wheel bearing so we can actually do a proper diagnostic.
You got it. We got the tire off. We'll show you how we did that with some special tools later. Then we had to remove the brake caliper. So there's two bolts, one on the top, one on the bottom. Remove both of those. Then you're able to pull the caliper off. Now here's a little trick. You don't want to put any stress on that brake line. If you just hang the caliper from the brake line, you're going to break that, and that's no good. That's a whole different set of problems. So you just hang it from a bungee cord. We hung it from the spring to the top of the suspension, and it's up and out of the way, and your brake line is in good shape. You're able to take both of the brake pads, they just slide right out. Then you need to go onto the back to remove the bracket, and there's just two more bolts to get the bracket off. Slide the bracket off, then time to remove the actual disc itself. Of course, I yanked on it a couple times, then I realized there's a Torx bolt holding it on there. So I grabbed the Torx bit and pulled that bolt right out, and we were able to slide the disc right off, and here we are.
Well, there you go. Now, if you suspect a bearing problem, Dave, you can drive along in your car. Before you get to this point, you can actually swerve to the right or left. And what's going on there is you're shifting the weight of the car either onto the bearing or off of the bearing. So at least you can isolate it to a side. That's what we did. Another thing you can do too is you can actually change road surfaces. We do this a lot on Tech Garage because it's a pretty easy tip. You're just going down, let's say, a nice asphalt or concrete road. A concrete road here, nice and smooth, or a bridge, and then you change surfaces onto a bumpy asphalt road. If the noise changes, most likely it's in the tire. If the noise stays the same, well, it's probably a bearing issue. And then you can take it a little bit further. You can get a stethoscope like this, put it on there and listen for it. Remember, you're taking 5,000 pounds off the car, Dave, so it may be a little harder to hear. You got a solution for that as well.
Yes, sir. You thought I had my Walkman from back in 1986 here? No, this is actually an electronic version of the stethoscope. I like it because you can adjust the volume. You're not blasting your eardrums out every time you listen to it. So you take the microphone and you put it right here on the bearing itself in this case. And as you, yeah, as you turn it there, it sounds like that thing's like full of sand or grit or something. Yeah. And that is, that's no bueno. That's got to come off. That's a bad bearing right there. Yeah.
And you're used to this anyway. It's like, can I have a cheeseburger and fries, please?
Clearly, I'd like the supersize. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And what Dave was listening to is actually through his stethoscope. You can hear this here. That grind is not good. Now, you can also take the wheel at 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock and wiggle it back and forth and see if there's any play. If it's not that obvious, this one probably would be. This is what a good bearing sounds like. You can't hear it. That's how it's supposed to be. And it's kind of hard to turn. That's a good thing. Well, Dave, we got the diagnostics down. We know it's a wheel bearing, a wheel hub assembly here. It's a whole hub assembly. On the back, there's an ABS connector back here. I already have it unplugged. We'll kind of snake it out, take good care of that. Dave, what else do we have to do back there?
That ABS connector is actually getting in the way of a bolt that we have to undo here. There's 3 on the back of the hub in this case. So you remove that one bolt already once you got the ABS connector out. And I've got 2 more bolts here. This one's the tricky one here, so we'll get that one out of the way first. It's hiding up here, and let me see if I can...
That's exactly where it is. It's right here on the top, so if I turn that around, that's what he's actually up against. Here's the ABS connector right here. The other one's on the other side. Now remember, the axle's going through here, and the last nut he has is right down on the bottom. You can see that one down there pretty good. But Dave, you get that out. I got that one out already. You get that last one out.
Yes, sir.
And we should be pretty close.
Yep. There we go. All right, they should both come off now.
All right, you got it off now. Now you got an axle nut right here, which usually has a bunch of torque on it. Some of them can be staked, some can be oblong, so you may have to put a little pressure on. I'm just going to use a gun. There we go.
That's good news.
All right, yep, that's good news. That come off, so that's good news. Now, a lot of times I like to go back and put the nut back on here because I don't want to mess up the threads. We're going to reuse that CV axle. We don't want to do any damage to it. But these could be stuck on, Dave, so if you just kind of give it a wiggle, I'll tap it. Grab that side there and wiggle it towards us. There it goes.
Okay,
That
nice.
easy. All right, and then the axle's stuck in there. See if I can knock that through. There we go. That's why I put the nut on there.
Nice little finesse, John.
Yep. And I'm using a dead blow hammer, so we're not doing any damage to anything on here. So I get that off, and we'll walk that harness through. If you pick up that CV axle a little bit towards your side right there, there we go. Bam. Cool. There you go, Dave. Merry Christmas,
Hey,
Bad.
thanks very much. Well, we're going to take a break. We're going to get our bearings, I guess. And when we come back, John and Josh are going to show you how to deal with a broken stud and a lug nut that gets rounded like in our case.
No doubt.
We'll be right back with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com. We hope you're enjoying this episode of Tech Garage. We do this every week, of course, and in between, we are all over social media, John.
Yeah, we sure are. You can go to Masters Entertainment Group, YouTube channel. They have seasons from 8 seasons. This is our 8th season, Dave.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, there's 13 of them for every season, so you can get a whole college education there. Not to mention Facebook, Twitter. We're all over the place, man, and we're doing stuff all year long, so check us out.
It's a great place to see our old shows, see what we're up to. It's also a great place to send us a comment or a complaint. If you've got a beef, staff members are standing by to answer your questions.
Yeah, that's right. We're a show for the people. We love to hear from you. We don't want to do this without you, so write in. We love your comments, man.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radios since 1977. AP Laser, leading the way. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Well, thank you for sticking with us. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, we're checking out the bearing over there, and I just want to show you something we found here at Tech Garage. Pretty cool. This bearing here, well, they didn't change it. It took too long, and what happened is the wheel is actually attached to this. Now, think about that. When this comes off, so is your wheel down the road. So make sure you address it before it gets to that point. Now, what happened with ours, you remember at the beginning we had that lug nut that was rounded off? Well, no worries. RockAuto.com, they have a tool for the job. This right here. These are actually lug nut removers for when they're stripped like this. They got a couple different sizes. You just find the one that fits yours. These are kind of reverse threads, so when I'm turning it backwards, it's grabbing on the inside, almost like a bolt extractor. So once it grabs it, you can go ahead, hammer it off, it'll come off, you'll be good to go. Now, Josh, ours on the other issue, man, we got a problem here. We snapped one completely off as well. What's our options?
Well, completely broke stud, we can replace the entire hub, or what I like to do is I like to get a big old hammer and beat the stud out.
All right, well, you got a big old hammer. Show us how it's done.
I'm gonna let you hold it.
I gotta
Put
hold it
here. Right.
All right.
You ready?
Yep. No, I'm scared.
You should be. You should be scared.
You're gonna hit this, not me, right? All right, let's see
Ready?
if we can get out of there.
Get a good tap and go.
All right. Woo, like
First
nothing.
shot.
Look at that. Shot it right across the room. That's fine. You can use a press. You can do it that way, or you can do it with a hammer. They're in there. They're kind of a press fit, but now what do?
Now we're going to take the correct stud that we got from RockAuto.com.
Okay.
Push it up through here.
All right.
And then you have a special tool that we can use on this.
And that's cool. Yeah, Rock Auto has this special tool. We'll put it up in there, and it has a bearing. A lot of guys just like to put the lug nut on and tighten it up. We're not going to do that. We're going to put that on like that. Now we can go ahead and take our gun and lock it up in there. We'll be good to go.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get these torque specs over to Dave real quick.
You do that. Just make sure you use the proper torque specifications. Use torque sticks or a torque wrench when you put your wheels on and hand start those lug nuts so you won't have that problem. Speaking of problem, I think they got it about solved.
Ooh, looks like I caught you just in time. I got your torque specs.
Very nice, sir. Yeah, I've got all 3 bolts on the back of the hub. They've been run down all the way, so final torquing here, 96 foot-pounds of torque.
That's it.
Yeah, and then when you get to this drive shaft nut, it's 155.
Whew, I got to be a man to handle that one.
Yeah, no doubt. Anytime you're torquing anything down, any kind of bolt on your vehicle, you want to make sure you check your service manual make sure you're getting the right torque specs on it. Too much torque on it, you can do some real damage. And if you don't have enough, that's when you have some safety issues. There you go. Some stuff will start coming loose, and that will be a bad day for you.
Speaking of things coming loose, you do not want your axle nut to come loose. In this case, we can replace ours. It's totally fine with that.
And some are made to be replaced.
Right.
You can't reuse them.
Yeah, some of them are disposable. You want to put a brand new one on. We can reuse this one, which is good. Some of the axle nuts are castellated. You have to torque it to a certain spec, back it off. And some of them have a little pinch tab that you have to bend down over to do that. Like you said, mine's 155 foot-pounds, so I'm going to get this started, but that's a lot of weight. So let's go ahead and button everything back up, get the brake pads back on. That way we'll get you in the car, press the brakes. That'll hold it still while I can put some weight on there and get that 155 foot-pounds of torque.
Excellent, yeah, just kind of dummy that on there. And when you're putting the brakes back together, it's just the reverse order of what we've already done. And everything's kind of been broken apart. The rest has been busted off, so this should go back together really, really easily. We'll be right back with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com. And when we come back, we're going to have a little Garage Ed talking all about front suspension.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, we made it to the segment called Garage Ed, and it's all about the suspension fundamentals, my friend. What do we want to talk about? Well, we want to talk about types of suspension, and you can look at this first graphic right here. There's an independent suspension and a non-independent suspension. Well, obviously, the independent suspension down there, you can see the wheels, they move opposite of each other. And the rear axle or rigid suspension, the non-independent, they actually go with each other. So you're gonna have a nice ride with that independent suspension. Then there's this term called sprung and unsprung weight when it comes to suspension. You can see it right here as well. Everything below the vehicle springs down there, that's called unsprung weight, everything down in there. Now that's important because manufacturers are making cars lighter, they're making the rims out of alloys, the brakes out of composites to try to reduce the sprung weight so a car will actually handle better. Now let's talk about a couple of types of suspensions. You can see this first one right here. This is called an SLA, short long arm suspension system. And if you take a look at the graphic right there, you can see the upper control arm. It's the green one up there, which is the short one. Then the lower control arm, that's the long one. Hence the term SLA, short long arm suspension system. And the yellow out there is the steering knuckle, and then you have the actual stabilizer bar and the sway bar links down there. Now even better yet, I can show it to you in action right here. I actually have an S10 frame with everything on it. You can see right here, you have the upper control arm. This is the short arm. Down here is the long arm. That's the lower control arm, sometimes called an A-frame. Then you have the actual spindle assembly right here located in red. And then here's the sway bar that goes across, the sway bar links. And then you have the yellow here, which is the tie rod end. Short long arm suspension system. Now another type is a McPherson strut. Take a look at this right here. You can see it with the coil springs. You can have the springs on or off the actual strut. And once again, here it is all in action. You can see it right here. You can see the actual strut assembly all bolted up right here. Start down here at the bottom. Down here at the bottom, here's your actual knuckle right here, your steering knuckle, your steering shaft, coming up to an actual strut assembly. Now your strut assembly has the spring built in, the actual spring which supports the vehicle weight. And then up here you have what's called a strut bushing. You turn it to the right or to the left, and you may run into some problems. Now to check a suspension system, just get a ginormous pry bar. Come over here, start prying up and down, and you'll find some problems.
You said ginormous pry bar. I've got one for you, John.
Dave, you always got to outdo me.
Get a little more leverage that way. It'll be good. And here's some of the parts John showed you, and here's what can go wrong. This is a control arm that has seen better days, and you can see here on the bushing, clearly that thing is shot. And over here, ball joint, same story. The grease is all gone and the bushing is shot. You want to get rid of this and replace this entire control arm. You can buy the assembly at rockauto.com. And of course here we have a sway bar link and the bushings are shot on this. That is no good. And over here on your tie rod, yeah, you don't want to hear that flopping around. That thing is history. And John, you talked about the strut bushing. Take a look at this one. This is dry rotted and gross, and it's going to make all kinds of noise, and it's not going to work very well. All these suspension parts, they all stink.
Well, speaking of stinks, you don't want to miss this. If you have a cabin odor inside your car, stick around because the Master Technician's Tech Tip is coming up next, right after this break. Dave, I can't get over the pry bar.
Hey, you sitting there in your easy chair drinking your morning coffee? Hope you're loving this episode of Tech Garage. Guess what? Another way to do it again Sunday morning on Motorhead Garage.
Absolutely. Motorhead Garage is all about products, people, vehicles, all kinds of cool things.
Do not miss Motorhead Garage.
Here it is.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by BrothersTrucks.com, your #1 source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GMC truck restoration. Magic Creeper, the most versatile creeper ever. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, we're winding this thing down, but not so quick. It's time for the Master Technician's Tech Tip. And this week, it's all about the cabin air filter. It's an overlooked service that a lot of people don't do just because they don't realize they have a cabin air filter. What is a cabin air filter? What does it do? And why do we even have one? We'll take a look at this right here. You can see it located right there to the air intake system, the ductwork. Now, this is important. Number one, you don't want the odors and all the pollen and everything in the cabin. That's probably the most important, but there's some hidden things you might not know. Think about it. The air's going through there, right there, through the blower motor, and it's going through the evaporator. That's E, and then it goes over to the heater core, which is H. So if you're taking dirty or unfiltered air and you're running it through your evaporator or your heater core, well, your evaporator is not going to be efficient. You're going to start losing your air conditioning, and your heater core is not going to be efficient. You may lose some heat. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure you change it. How do you change it? Well, it's real simple. Just look at the graphic right there. You can see it's under the hood like it is on our car, or you may have it under the glove box there. So just go in there, look in your service manual and figure out where yours is. They're usually pretty easy. I can demonstrate it right here for you on our Challenger. It's right up here on the cowling or the bulkhead of the car. There's a little plate right here. We got the hood up. So I'm just going to pop that off. And when we pop that off, it's hard to see down in there, but it's in there. I'm going to pop open a little cover, and I can see it peeking out there. But what I want to do is kind of note if there's any arrows of which way the air is flowing and stuff, so I don't get confused when I go to put it back in. But I'm going to grab it. I'm just going to slide it right out of here. And when I slide it out of here, oh, now this was really not in that bad a shape. I've seen them a lot worse. Now I'm going to note the arrow, the directions, but it's on here and it's going to go into the case. Now, I always like to do this cool trick. Check this out. So I'm going to take our brand new one right here, and you can see the light shining through there, real bright. Now this one, man, I've seen them with rats' nests, birds, all kinds of stuff in here, and you can barely see the light coming through. I mean, you can see it in some places, but other places it's not that easy. Big difference between the two right here. So we'll go ahead and replace this one. Now, you can look right here. There's also the arrows of flow, the direction of flow. That's huge. If you don't know or your other one doesn't have it, think about the air's coming in and going to the case, so I want to make sure the airflow is going through this way. If you're up under your dash, it's coming in, usually underneath the ductwork and into the system. So make sure the arrow flows right. Just go put it back in. I'll pop it back in and seal it up. Nothing to it. Just reverse the procedure. Make sure you know where yours is. Make sure you go ahead and change it. Follow the maintenance intervals. Where are you going to find that? Well, right in your owner's manual. Dodge has an owner's manual. You can look at it right there on the screen. You can see every 12,000 miles they want you to replace that. It's a replaceable item. It's an air filter, cabin air filter. So go ahead and get out there and change yours. Perhaps your service is overdue? No worries. Tom and Dave have tips and tricks to keep your car service right on track.
Well, that's right, John. Tom, you guys at RockAuto.com have thought of everything, right down to the order history on the Rock Auto page. How does that work?
Yeah, it's optional. Customers don't need to log in if they don't want to, but if you create an account, you can search through and find the orders by vehicle, by date, and figure out when you last replaced maintenance items like cabin air filters. So like in this example, I can say, oh, well, it's been 3 years. Time to replace that, and I can see exactly which filter I ordered and decide next time, do I want to order that filter, or do I want to, last time I ordered a charcoal filter, I was concerned about odors. Now I'm more concerned about filtering out really tiny particles like bacteria. So I might want to get a HEPA filter that can get pollen and bacteria, little tiny things.
But you certainly know which size and which vehicle it's going to fit. And,
Yeah.
and you don't have to run to the manual, and wherever you're thinking of it. Sitting in the airport, you're like, oh, I have to change my air filter. Let me order one.
Yeah, no more little tiny pieces of paper and
Yeah.
trying to keep track.
That's super handy. Now let's talk about the array of maintenance items you can find at rockauto.com.
Well, certainly all the filters, oil filters, air filters, and then brakes, shocks, you name it. Our slogan is all the parts your car will ever need.
And it's not just a slogan, it's really true. Everything you need for maintenance and everything you need as far as replacement parts go. Check them out at rockauto.com.
Well, it looks like Josh and Dave did exactly what they said they were going to do. You can see the brakes are on. You got the lines. Everything looks pretty good, secure. The beauty of it, Dave, is, man, I don't feel anything, but you can actually verify the repair for me. You got your stethoscope?
Yes, sir. I don't have my fancy digital one, but I have this one. It'll do just fine.
That'll work. I don't
Yeah.
feel anything here, but just put it on that axle anywhere there, the spindle. Here we go.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. No,
Yeah,
I
it's
figured that.
perfect.
Wow, man, you guys made short work of that.
Sweet.
It looks good, my man.
All wrapped up.
Or is it? Wait, cut. No, we're good. This is what happens.
No, this is it. This is the backing plate, and this should have gone on before we put the hub on.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll just have to do it all in reverse, I guess.
Hey, welcome to my world.
Yeah.
And you know what? Don't throw it out. Just take the job back apart, put it back on. We're going to do the same. We may grab a lunch before then, but we're going to put this back on for sure. You want this piece on there? No problem. Kind of indicative of the whole show, wasn't
Well, I
it,
was
Dave?
gonna say, it's kind of the bright side of things. This shows you this stuff happens when you're doing a repair or any kind of project like that. We had the broken stud, we had a stripped lug nut, it was rounded off, and now, of course, this. You're welcome.
Very cool. We got our afternoon cut out for us.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Well,
Now
you
we know
what?
how to do it, right?
Exactly, and do it well.
Yes, sir.
Well, we're out of time for today, folks, but make sure you check us out on social media. We got Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that cool stuff. We'll keep you up to date. We're a show for the people. We'll see you next week with more Tech Garage presented by rockauto.com.
See ya.